Welcome, John Pepper. Thank you so much for being here with us for our PD Connect support group. And we've heard so much about you, but please do tell us about yourself.
Don't believe everything you hear. As you know, I'm 85 years of age, going downhill very fast at the moment. Anyway, what does one expect? Do you want the whole story basically as quickly as I can?
Sure.
My Parkinson's started back in 1963. That's a long time ago. And because I was doing a lot of exercise at that time, going to the gym every day, etc., it was only diagnosed in 1992, 29 years later, which goes to show what exercise does for Parkinson's. It certainly slowed it down, but they didn't recognize all the symptoms as they came. Constipation and insomnia and all that sort of thing can be anything. But when I started to shuffle, then they thought there was something else wrong. And of course, after lots of medical tests and, they diagnosed Parkinson's. So getting Parkinson's, I'm sure you realize, as everyone must, is a terrible shock because it's not the type of thing that one wants to have. I'd rather die in 6 months with something that's terminal than know that I'm going to go downhill quite fast, going through all these stages of not being able to speak and not being able to do this or that. It was a terrible shock. And I did what most people would do. And I did nothing for the next 2 years other than feel sorry for myself, putting it in a nutshell. So 2 years later, my wife had been going to something called Run Walk for Life here in South Africa. I don't think it's all over the world. And she lost 14 kilograms and came off all her blood pressure pills and antidepressant pills and was so much healthier than she had been. She had never done exercise in her whole life. And the thought of walking for an hour 3 times a week did not really attract her, but she was so determined to get a bit healthier than she had been. And, this really shook her that in 2 years she had done all those things, lost all that weight, and got so fit that she didn't need blood pressure or any type of tablets anymore. And she'd been on blood pressure pills for over 20 years. So I was very impressed with this. And why I'm mentioning this, she said to me after 2 years of sitting around really doing nothing and just feeling sorry for myself, she said, why don't you join Run Walk for Life? It has done so many other people a lot of good with all sorts of medical problems. So, of course, being a man, I argued. And what does she know? I mean, she's just a woman. I'm not a male chauvinist. Anyway, eventually, after 3 months of, not really arguing, of prompting, I said, what have I got to lose? So I stopped going to the gym because it obviously wasn't doing me any good. I'd been going to the gym for an hour and a half every day, every single day. And it wasn't obviously not doing me any good because I was going downhill faster than I had been before I was diagnosed, which didn't surprise me because I became very negative, which I've never been in my life. So anyway, I started going to Walk for Life, and within a very short period, like 3-4 months, I was up to 1 hour because you start from 10 minutes or 15 minutes and then build up. Every 2 weeks, you add on another 5 minutes until you get to an hour. And in those 4 months, my time had improved from over 10 minutes a kilometer to less than 9 minutes a kilometer. It was 10.5 minutes a kilometer. So here I saw a change, from going downhill to suddenly improving in something. At the gym, when you go to the gym, every machine has got a weight or some sort of setting. And when those settings go down and down and down, you know that you're not doing well. So here's something I was doing that was getting better. And that hadn't happened for years. So I put everything I could into it, go like full out. Within a very short period of time, I really, well, it took 3 years, but virtually all my symptoms, my walking and so forth, all went by the wayside. And of course, the medical profession's immediate reaction to that was, you obviously didn't have Parkinson's, because nobody with Parkinson's gets better, which is a very stupid attitude, quite frankly. I mean, they diagnosed me, they saw what I was like, and I mean, when I was shuffling and standing that shape, instead of standing upright like this, I was standing like this. I was shuffling badly. I was struggling to talk, which, as you can see, is unbelievable. Anyway, I was really in a bad way. And instead of them saying, well, gosh, that's wonderful, what did you do? I just met this other with my own doctor. He said, well, you've still got Parkinson's. And obviously, if you're doing well, keep doing it. But that nobody was interested in what I was doing and how did I get so much better, which I don't understand. I still don't understand it today. But I'm beginning to believe that the medical profession, because there's no cure for Parkinson's, and therefore I shouldn't be getting better. Therefore, there's something wrong. Rather than saying, well, let's see what other people can do and start becoming positive about this change. So I've had this opposition from there onwards. And in fact, after 1994, in 1995, I joined the Parkinson organization. And within a very short period of time, I found myself as chairman of the National Parkinson Association here in South Africa. And when I started to get better, when I found I started getting better, I worked out what it was that I was doing, the fast walking, which was different. Nobody walks fast if they're in a hurry. Why would you walk fast? If you wanted to go fast, you would run or jog, which I had been doing, but that didn't do anything for me. So I thought, well, there's got to be something about the fast part of the walking. And, you've heard of fight or flight. Mm-hmm. If you're in trouble, your body puts out a growth factor, which is, for every cell of your body has its own growth factor. And if it gets destroyed or injured, that growth factor repairs that injury or replaces the cell if it is destroyed. Now, the growth factor for the part of the brain that is destroyed by Parkinson's is a glial cell, glial, G-L-I-A-L. And that glial cell doesn't produce dopamine, it manages the production of dopamine in that area of the brain. So there is a growth factor called gdnf, glial-derived neurotrophic factor. Now, the very name tells you, neurotrophic means nerve repair, basically, repair or replacement. And because that's what growth factor does. All growth factor does that. So there is a growth factor for repairing the damaged Parkinson's cells. Now, the medical profession know that. Why aren't they telling you to do something to produce more glial cells or more, repair the glial cells that you have got, that you've been losing, and start getting better? They know this, and they're fighting it. They're saying it's a load of rubbish, and nobody wants to talk about gdnf. I go to all these Parkinson conferences all over the world. I've been in America and in Canada and South Africa, of course, and I can't think of anywhere else. Oh, I went to one in Australia. And all of these places ask the question, why doesn't anybody talk about gdnf? And their immediate response is, GDNF does nothing for Parkinson's. Now, the name tells you it does. How can they say it doesn't do anything? So I'm fighting this battle all the time. Wherever I go, it's a brick wall with Parkinson's in the medical profession. They don't appear to want to talk about GDNF, which is a natural substance. And it's a no-no. So who runs the medical profession? The pharmaceutical industry, in my opinion. Okay, so I'm in dangerous territory now. But what the hell? What have I got to lose? I understand the medical profession and the pharmaceutical industry. They stand to lose a fortune of money made on Parkinson's, both in attending to it as doctors and, of course, making the medication. Now, there is no medication to repair Parkinson's. There's nothing that does anything to slow down the progression of Parkinson's. When I say the nothing, there is one, the MOAB inhibitors do slow down the progression, because what is meant by MAOB is monoamine oxidase beta. There's two, alpha and beta, but the beta one, it stops the breakdown of dopamine in the brain, because whatever chemicals the body produces, if you don't use them, it has to get rid of them. Otherwise, you've got far too much. I mean, just imagine having too many hormones. Sex hormones. It may sound fun, but I think it would really influence your life very badly. So you can't afford to have too much of any chemical in your body. So the natural thing is to break down the dopamine if it has been there for, I don't know what. If I did know, it would help. So anyway, so you stop the breakdown of dopamine, and dopamine is the known cause of Parkinson's. The lack of dopamine it causes you to have Parkinson's disease. It doesn't actually, it's not the cause of it, it's just the messenger that is used. So if you, on two scores here now, the medical profession don't want to know about it, and they don't want to talk about it. So they don't want you to know about it. And I've done everything I can, going all over the place, 6, 7 different countries, talking to people. And I've been to your place. You know that, Lisa.
Yes.
And I talked to hundreds of, well over 100 different meetings. I don't know, 120, 130 meetings, and how many thousands of people. And the one thing that's come out plain and clear is that everybody can consciously control their movements and overcome all the movement symptoms in Parkinson's, which I basically have done. Now that I call conscious control of movement, as you know, which is what you guys are working on. Am I right?
Right.
Now, it seems to be difficult for most people to understand that you've got two parts of your brain, this conscious and the subconscious. There may be 10 others, I don't know, I'm not a doctor. But I know that there are two things that you do without thinking and things that you have to think about. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Now,
yes.
What I'm doing is saying, right, if the one doesn't work, the subconscious isn't working, surely the conscious still works, because it was used in order to teach you how to walk, to teach you how to climb trees, and whatever. And I just putting two and two things together as I've been going with the Parkinson's, I realized that when I started going to meetings and I was talking to people and telling them, how much better I am and so forth, when I was the chairman of the association, and nobody could stop me from doing that. And I got people, don't ask me why, but I mean, when I saw a guy in one town called Potchefstroom, he walked into the meeting. It took him it felt like 10 minutes to get him from the door to sitting down. You've seen that. with the, they call it freezing. And their legs go up and down, and they just stand still, but they don't move forward, you know. Anyway, when I saw that, I thought, I'm sure I can get him to, you know, to overcome that. So I asked him if he would mind if I showed him, and he was thrilled that I was prepared to do so. And within seconds, he was walking normally, which you've seen, Liza. Or is it Lisa or Liza?
It's Lisa, but that's okay.
Lisa, okay. Now, you show people how to, they don't know they're using their conscious brain, because I say now, how far can you stick your leg out in front of you? How high can you stand on your toes? How high can you swing your arms? And they do all of these things like everybody else can, not realizing that those are the things they're not doing when they're walking. So when I say, right, forget about how you used to walk. I want you to think about putting your weight on the one leg and moving the other leg out in front of you and landing on the heel of that. You have to concentrate on that heel, so that they have to concentrate. You can't do it any other way than concentrating on one action at a time. Landing, I'm using my hands here, but I can't do it on this. Landing on the heel with the toes sticking up in the air. In other words, you're not landing flat on the foot. When it becomes the front foot, you're landing on the heel of that foot, and then you walk onto the toes of that foot, carrying the weight of your body on that leg. And so we go, and they do it immediately. Now, if there was one person that couldn't do it, I would say, well, you know, maybe it doesn't work for everybody, but it works for everybody. Every single person who's done it, except one guy, of course, who couldn't stand up. So if you can't stand up, you can't walk. And maybe if I'd worked with him, and I mean, he was in a town a long way from where I live, and he appeared to have no desire whatsoever to get out of his wheelchair and start doing things again. So, and that was his choice. I'm sure he could have done. Anyway, everybody else, there wasn't a single, well, I beg your pardon, there were two chaps in America who didn't understand what I meant by using my conscious brain. That was a block to them. They just didn't know. So they weren't prepared to do the walking, and they said they can't, they're going to fall. So that was their choice. But other than that, everybody I've come across throughout the world has been able to consciously walk. So here we have an answer to Parkinson's disease. It doesn't cure Parkinson's disease. I still have Parkinson's, but I live a normal life. In fact, better than normal for most people. And I'm still basically healthy at the age of 85, doing things that young people in their 50s don't do, walking 7 kilometers in an hour. And, you know, this is an eye-opener as far as I'm concerned, but the medical profession has done everything to stop me telling anybody. They got me out of the chairmanship of the association in 1999. And when the moment I was no longer the chairman, I couldn't go to all the different support groups and tell them how to walk, you know. So they blocked everything for me. So that's where I started going overseas, where nobody can stop me doing anything. And it has worked very well. But here in South Africa, other than the people who know me and the groups that want me to come, I can do nothing. I can't get hold of anybody other than through the association. And when we were overseas on this last trip, on every one of the trips, we tried, when you go to a country like the States and Canada and so forth, you get there, tried to get their association to give me a list of their members so that I could, in every city that I went to, I could communicate with as many members to get them to come to meetings. And they said they cannot support anything that has not been scientifically tested. How can you scientifically test walking? You know, either you can do it or you can't. So they wouldn't give us nowhere. Now, Parkinson's associations have been thought to be your own association, there for the benefit of the Parkinson patients, to help them cope with their Parkinson's. But in actual fact, the Parkinson associations are part of are controlled, I think, by the only people who could control it is the pharmaceutical industry. Who pays with my association here, the money that we got in from subscriptions from all the groups, and we only had about 8 or 10 groups, didn't pay for the cost of running to a person running it and motor car and all the other things. So who paid for the running? Which wasn't paid. It was paid by the pharmaceutical industry. Actual pharmaceutical companies giving us donations to, when we ran out of money, just phoned them up and they gave us a donation. So they don't agree with that. They've got nothing to do with it. I can't prove that. I can, but I'm not going to go court cases in order to do so. Excuse me. I'm fighting the pharmaceutical industry and I'm fighting the medical profession, and I don't want to fight either of them. I want to cooperate with them and look for better medications and so forth. Now, why don't the pharmaceutical industry make any medication to help either slow down or reverse the symptoms of any chronic illness? I don't know if you realize this, if an illness kills you, like cancer does, and like quite a few other things, the things that come to mind is HIV and these two viruses, SARS and MERS, and there's another one. They immediately or very quickly came out with a vaccine to prevent it from killing you. Okay, I mean, HIV doesn't kill you anymore, and SARS doesn't kill you anymore, and this coronavirus, they're already talking about testing a vaccine in such a short time. We're working on doing it. If they can do it for things that kill you, why can't they do it for chronic illnesses? They don't want to. That's where their money comes from. So we are basically fighting, and I would call it natural. They're looking after their businesses and their incomes and so forth, their livelihood. And I'm trying to get people to stop using medication, not stop needing medication, rather than stop taking medication. And they, of course, want to protect their livelihoods. So that is a natural thing. And we've just got to work with that and understand it and not fight it. We're not fighting the pharmaceutical industry. We are trying to help the patient, which is two different things. And if they are a victim of Parkinson's patients getting better, well, that's life. You can't have it both ways. So we have to know these things and work with them. And I'm busy. I just finished writing another book. For Parkinson's. In fact, 2 books. One, my life story, and the other one, to bring the Parkinson's first book up to date, what's happened since I wrote the first book, which is teaching people to walk and so forth. So I've done this because when I'm not here anymore, which is, I don't know, around the corner, I would like this to carry on, and I'd like people like yourself to be actively working with it and making a living out of it. It's wonderful. So that's my story, and now you can ask questions.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that story. One comment that I have before we get to the questions was just about the gdnf. And I just was listening to a symposium yesterday from USC, which is the University of Southern California, where they've been doing research on lactate and glial cells and how the gdnf is so important, and how that's really how people get better, or how the system, as you said, works better. And maybe that was your underlying cause, because 7 kilometers an hour is no joke. I mean, you must be creating lactate, and therefore that's potentially why you've responded so well to the exercise and how it optimizes your brain and your body. So just so you know, there is some research being done on the gdnf, not necessarily in any medication form or necessarily by the medical community. It's more the scientists, I should say. And who knows if they will somehow propel that forward to make it more prominent, I guess, in the world of treatments.
Lisa, if you have any access to the universities to get them to look at what causes the brain to produce GDNF.
Right.
Now, I believe this fight or flight syndrome is the cause of producing these growth factors in the body. There's BDNF and there's GDNF and there's there's a whole lot of them, for different parts of the brain and so forth. So if they will talk about that and bring it out, if they ignore it and they say they poo-poo it, then they don't want to find something, which we can understand. We can understand that.
It just came out in July or June of last year, and it was pretty much by accident, but it has to do with lactic acid and lactate, which is produced by the muscles through intense exercise or through exercise. And then they found that the lactate helps make astrocytes and all these glial cells work better to create that environment for the dopamine to work better. So they're trying to understand how the mechanism works, not just that it works, but how it works. And this is one researcher that I know of down at USC who's been doing that. But anyways, we'd love to ask you some questions from our group, if you don't mind. Okay, so we are PD Connect. We have, about 350 people on our email list that are coming through to our classes and have attended, different programs with us. So we have a lot of people, but they would love to hear from you. So first question is from Linda. How long did it take with your fast walking program before you saw results?
4 months.
Okay.
I've given you that in writing, haven't I?
Yes, you have.
4 months. That first 4 months, I went from being totally negative to suddenly realizing that I was getting better. 4 months.
Wow.
Okay?
And how long do you walk for, and how frequently?
Well, we Walk for Life, they won't allow you to walk every day, flat out. You can stroll, of course, but walking fast is not strolling. And it is definitely putting the brain in a different, the whole body into a different position. So they start building most people 10 minutes. Some people can't walk for 10 minutes flat out. A lot of people don't know what flat out means. They don't push themselves. I'm going fast enough. I can't go faster than this. Meantime, they're not going fast at all. How do I know when you are walking fast as fast as you can? If you can't talk to somebody while you're walking at that speed, you're walking fast enough. You're walking as fast as you can. If you can't say a word, you're walking too fast, and you don't want to do that. But just slightly off that speed, slow down very slightly the effort, and be able to say 2 or 3 words. That's the speed you should be walking at. If you can't, because in Walk for Life, you get these people walk together and they talk the whole time. They're not walking as fast as they're women, of course. I'm not anti-women by any means. Anyway, I just like teasing them. So if you walk as fast as you can, you are going to produce this GDNF, and you're going to get better. Of that, that's personal experience, because I know as getting to my age, you get all sorts of things happening in your body. I mean, I was in hospital for 5.5 hours a couple of months ago because of this atrial fibrillation. I'm sure you know about that. If you know what atrial fibrillation is, it's just a very uneven heartbeat. So I'd previously gone to hospital at the end of last year, right at the end, to have shock treatment, electric shock treatment, to get the heart to beat normally. I had 2 lots of that, and it worked for a few minutes and a couple of hours, but it wasn't working all the time. So I then did in March the 5.5 hour what they call ablation.
Ablation.
Ablation. Now, it's worked 100%. My heartbeat now is that of a young person. So I've had all sorts of injuries, muscular injuries and so forth, doing too much, going too fast, too quickly, and all those things. So, it's not been just a walk in the park. It's been very difficult, but the whole point is to do it for your health and not for any other reason. And doing it properly makes sense. So, carry on with your questions.
Okay. The next question's a two-part question from Janet. How do you recommend arm swing improvement is the first part.
Well, if you realize, asking people, show me how high you can lift your arm above your head, and their arm will go straight up like that.
Right.
So you say, well, why can't you swing it up like that? Well, they stand and they can swing. So why can't you do it when you're walking? You just got to think about it. And my answer to you, when I wrote it down, was you can't start walking thinking about your feet and your arms all at the same time. Now, the arms are incidental. You walk much easier when you swing your arms. I swing across my body, not backwards and forwards, but we're all different. So whatever you are comfortable with is what you should be doing. So when you've got your feet right, which takes a couple of months to get that you're landing on that heel and you transferring the weight and moving onto the toes and then landing on the heel, and to get that, which you don't have to think 100% concentrating on that, because you can concentrate on two or three things. I know women who can talk and work at the same time. Men can't. So
Great.
you can concentrate on two or three things at the same time simultaneously, because most people can talk while they're working. Some people don't stop talking while they're working.
That's true. Okay,
Right.
and the second part is, can the consciousness of tremors help alleviate tremors, similar to the walking consciousness concept?
Well, Lisa and Steph, the part of not the cure, the management of Parkinson's is stress management. When I'm stressed, I can't do anything properly. Now, one of the things I can't do, is walking if I'm stressed. When I'm walking, I become de-stressed. But to start off with, if my mind is on something else, it can't be on my walking. So, as far as the shake is concerned, I don't know if you can see this. Where is it? There.
Mm-hmm. There. Mm-hmm.
Perfectly still. The moment I'm stressed, this is my hand. And then I can't stop this now unless I hold it to get my control back again, okay? So it's a very thin line between conscious and subconscious. If I'm not concentrating like I am now, then the shake is there. It's omnipresent.
Right.
Now, there are two types of shakes, as you know. There's the resting tremor, which is peculiar because the moment you start using your hand, it stops shaking. But you can have a resting tremor and, I don't know what medical profession call it, I call it an action tremor. So when you're using the hand, it shakes, which is what I've got. They've got it, when you're not using it, it shakes, the resting tremor. So if you've got a resting tremor, or anybody's got a resting tremor, say to them, clench your fist, not tight, just clench it, the tremor stops. If you splay your fingers out like this, it stops because you're consciously using those fingers. So I'm actually doing something doing this. If I let go and relax, then I'm not using my fingers. I can't lose them. The fact that they're there is they're there. So that's something that you can take notice of, is helping people with resting tremors, make them aware the moment they use the hand, it stops tremoring. But for some reason or another, the tremor seems to be the most feared symptom of Parkinson's. So to me, constipation and all those things are much worse than the tremor, because I can stop the tremor, whether it's my type of tremor or if it's a resting tremor, I can stop both of them. by concentrating on holding it still, which is the same as using it. You're concentrating on holding it still. So yes, you can, to answer your question, Steph, you can take control of the tremor.
Excellent, thank you.
All right, moving on. We've got a question from Nancy. Is it better to encourage use of a walker or to have the caregiver help the PD patient walk, trying to follow their instructions?
Right. It's a process. If you're using a walking stick or a walker or a crutch or anything or a person, it is because you don't have confidence to do it on your own. So I work on the confidence. And to answer your question, to start off with, when I'm holding your hand or the patient's hand, I'm transmitting confidence to them, communicating the confidence, and I'm showing them that they can do it, and they've all done it. And most of them, I could let go within a minute, with them knowing I'm letting go, and they're carrying on walking. You've seen it. Now, that's all to do with confidence. If you don't have confidence, yes, you need a wheelie, or you need a crutch, or you need a walking stick or something, or a person. It's all to do with confidence. So you've got to build confidence in those people, self-confidence. Then everything else disappears. Okay?
Okay. What about motivation? What if someone is not really motivated to exercise? How do we get someone to move?
Right. If people believe, and this is my biggest problem, if I can't get a person to believe that things can come right, then they're not going to put anything into it. So what is demotivating is lack of belief. If you believe that you can overcome it, then you'll put everything into it. It's like you must have both been at some time on some sort of diet or way of not putting on weight, which everybody's got to do, or they should do if they're going to live healthy lives. If you know that this is going to work, you will stick with it. But most diets and methods of losing weight are not maintained. You can't maintain it. It's a way of life. Diet is a way of life. If you can't make it your way of life and work on it, okay, you're going to throw out the anchor and on a day and drink too much or eat too much. No, that's fine. We're all human. Don't think that because you did it once, I've lost control. I can't be bothered. And then you fill yourself up with food. So there's no one answer. It is, it is confidence and belief which gives you confidence. Okay. Does that answer?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yes. The next question is from Tom. Where do you think the best research is being done in the world?
I can't answer that question.
That's a tough question, yeah. And then you had already kind of touched base on this, but have you seen or heard of real progress in finding a cure? And when you talked about the pharmaceutical companies.
I don't believe anybody's looking for a cure. Because it's self-destructive on both their parts, the medical profession and the pharmaceutical industry, who pay for most of the things that happen. They're not going to put money into something that's going to cure, because they're putting themselves out of business, and you can understand that. So they will argue, of course, we spend millions on this and millions on that. They're not looking for cures. They're looking for other medications. With Parkinson's, they keep coming out with more different medications. None of them has ever been to cure. It is to solve this particular problem or solve that particular problem temporarily. So
right.
If you're not looking for a cure, you're not going to find a cure. Right. Okay, so from Darcy, we have the question, do you find that exercise will totally alleviate the stiffness without the meds on a good day, or is that always? Lisa, I don't know that I can answer that question because I've never particularly suffered from stiffness. Stiffness is either not getting the message to the muscle,
which in other words,
Mhm.
it feels it's stiff. What do they mean by stiff? Is it just because you've got used to not using your arm or your leg or something? That's not stiffness. Stiffness means if you try to move it, it won't move. It just stays there. So in other words, it's you understand the right term. When you're holding an arm rigid, it's not relaxed at all. What is the term for that?
Rigidity.
Okay. So
Yeah.
rigidity is an actual action. It comes out as a non-action, but it is an action. To hold your arm rigid, it means all your muscles are in tension. Now, I would say that you have to work on relaxation in order to overcome that. In other words, how to relax and let everything go. Just your head will slip. How to do that. That is the solution to that problem. There is another, and that is that if muscles themselves, you haven't used them for so long, they're virtually useless. You just build it up by using it. Okay.
I think maybe the question could be reworded as this, because the second part is I don't take medications, but they, every day is different for them in terms of their symptoms. And so the question is, do you find that when you exercise, it will totally alleviate your symptoms, all of them, or do you find that most of them or part of them will be alleviated by your fast walking?
Well, all of my movement symptoms have been alleviated. But when I'm injured and I can't walk, they all come back. Not overnight, but slowly start. How I notice things is I become very clumsy when I'm not using my body properly. I become clumsy. The coordination is disappearing. So coordination, which is a mental thing, needs practice. So if you don't practice things, you lose them. Okay, what you don't use, you lose. So I think that medication is another crutch. It's something that you take that knows, I'm going to feel a lot better for the next 20 minutes or next 2 hours or 3 hours. It's a crutch. It isn't doing anything for you. In fact, every medication has side effects. It's got to have side effects. It's toxic. It must be doing some damage somewhere. So try and avoid medication. I don't want to stop people taking medication as a principle. It is a benefit that happens when you don't need it. A lot of people take medication they don't need anyway. It's a habit. It's just one of those things. If your goal is to reduce medication and you start walking, doing the fast walking, you will find that if you try and come off half a pill, you might be taking 6 pills a day or 8 pills a day. Try coming off half of one when you start feeling better, and you'll see that it works. You don't need it. And then keep on reducing it until you get to the point where not only are you fit and you're feeling good and so forth, you no longer need medication.
Right.
Now, I was on medication. Either you take it or you don't. There's no coming off of it. And of course, when you come off anything, it's going to affect you. So I didn't understand that. So I went on and off, a month off and then back on again, and then a month off and back on again, until I realized I've got to, what is the right word when you become a drunkard and you overcome it? To wean yourself off of medication or booze or cigarettes or whatever it is. With cigarettes, I mean, most people used to smoke, and when I came off smoking, I just stopped. Okay, it's difficult. You can only think about that other cigarette, having another cigarette. The moment you put a cigarette in your mouth, you are smoking. So either you are smoking or you're not smoking. There's no in between. I only have one occasionally, but so it's the same with medication. You've got to wean yourself off that you are using it as a crutch. You can't suddenly take that crutch without falling. So wean yourself off the use of that crutch until eventually you don't need that crutch. And that's the same with medication.
Right. Great.
Yeah,
that answers our question from Charlene as well, because she was asking about when do you start to notice symptoms. So for you, because you are so fit, it must be how many days or weeks before you start to notice that clumsiness?
3-4 weeks.
Oh, great. Okay. All right. Another question comes from Keith. If someone is having trouble with their lower limbs that prevents them from walking, let's say they've got an ankle problem or a knee problem or even a hip problem, what do you suggest they do?
I can't answer that question. If it was me, I would start using whatever it is and find out how to use it with the least amount of pain and trouble. I've had lots of injuries in my life. And if I'd stopped using the leg or the arm, whatever it is that is injured, then I would be permanently injured. So most people get over injuries by using, not even consciously using, because that's what you've been doing all your life. You start using things and eventually it's gone. So I hope that answers your question. It's a difficult one.
People talk about other types of exercise, like cycling is good for you and swimming is good for you, but you really like people to walk. Can you just...
Okay. Are you doing exercise for fitness or are you doing exercise to overcome Parkinson's? If you're doing exercise to overcome Parkinson's, the only thing I know from experience is the walking. So I'm not saying the only exercise you should do is walking. I'm saying if you want to do something about Parkinson's, do fast walking. Not just walking, fast walking. If it's walking, that's for exercise. Doesn't do anything for Parkinson's. So in between, I can go to the gym. I don't go to the gym anymore. I don't need to. For the last 20 odd years, I've not gone to the gym, but I do my walking every second day. And the walking keeps me alive and fit and well and so forth. But I also do lots of other things. I paint, and which is not exercise, but it is exercise. It's coordination and so forth. So exercise, everybody needs to do all the time. So you do what you do and do whatever exercise gives you pleasure, do it. It's got nothing to do with Parkinson's. If you want to do something, exercise for Parkinson's is not the only thing you must do. I made a list, in my book of the things that I have to do in order to maintain my current health levels. And it would be the same for anybody else. Walking, obviously, is number one. Learning to control the walking and everything else is number two. Stress management is number three. Attitude is number four, the right attitude. And the other one is something most of us neglect, and that is mental fitness, keeping your brain working. I used to do a lot of Sudoku puzzles and, real difficult ones. I've got to use this grey matter. And it does you so much good. Playing chess, playing cards, any card game, playing lots of games requiring you to use your brain, all of those are good for you. And this list of, and the last one was medication, of course, the MAOB. If I didn't do all of those things, I wouldn't be where I am. So it's not one thing, it is 6 things that I think you have to do to maintain your health if you've got any physical problem. So it goes for lots of things, okay?
Yeah,
that's great. We did have one last question from Steve. What do you recommend for cognitive exercises? And I think you just mentioned things like Sudoku and to play actually is fun, and keeps your mind going.
I've never used my cell phone at all for playing games or anything. I've never used my computer for playing games. So I'm not against playing games. I love playing poker and, bridge and all these other things, which are social things. But
right.
Playing a game on your own is keeping your brain busy and so forth. So it may be a very useful thing, but I've never used it myself. Okay.
Excellent.
I have one last question, I think, because it is getting kind of late here. But in terms of the walking program, is it more important when you're starting out to walk perfectly in the beginning and really focusing on that foot placement and the weight shifting and the arm swing and all those things? Or do you want to just try to move fast and walk fast in the beginning?
Well, my experience tells me, I didn't know anything about conscious walking when I started walking with. It was speed. My whole concentration was going as fast as I can, trying to beat that damn woman down there that can do it much better than I can. And I never beat any of those women in Walk for Life. They much faster than I was. And there weren't many men at Walk for Life, probably the reason why it was the women. But the speed is the first thing to think about with walking for Parkinson's. And when you're walking, you'll find that you've got all sorts of problems. I find that, if I'm doing this or that, if I'm walking on an uneven surface, for instance, I trip over and I fall and so forth, which is rather painful. So I've learned how to fall so that I don't break things, and I fall and I roll over, instead of landing like that on my face, which I did about nearly a year ago. I fell flat on my face and really hurt myself, but because I wasn't concentrating on what I was doing. I was in a race, and so many people around me. I couldn't have rolled anyway with the people. You've heard of park run, have you? Park run?
No, I don't. But
throughout the world, there's something called park run, and they have a run once a week in wherever they want to run, 5 kilometers. They give you a number, your own number, anywhere in the world, and wherever you go, you can go to a park run somewhere. Through park run, you find out where it is and so forth. Now, your whole aim there is to reduce your time, the time taken to walk 5 kilometers. So you're not competing with anybody but yourself. You just want to walk faster and faster, okay? So that's just up my alley, but it nearly killed me.
Oh, man.
So that is a good segue there. What about for people that have fear of falling? Are there ways that you practice walking fast in a safe environment?
No. Learn how to fall is the way to overcome that problem. You then lose this fear of falling. If I walked and I was afraid of falling, then I would never have got where I am now. Mm-hmm. So just by turning around and landing on your almost on your shoulder, but you're rolling. You're not coming down like that. You're going like that. You're rolling. So anything that stops suddenly is going to hurt. It doesn't matter if it's your arm or your head, it's going to hurt. So if you roll, as you feel yourself falling, you sort of come into a ball and turn slightly so that you don't roll this way. You roll that way. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. All things happen in a sequence that is natural,
Right. Well, Steph, do you have any other questions or?
No, this has been great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, this has been fantastic. Wow, so eye-opening and so much wonderful material for all of our people to listen to over and over and over again. And I'm looking forward to hearing all kinds of feedback from them when we share them.
Yes, yeah. I would like to hear that as well.
Absolutely. We will certainly keep you informed.
Yes.
Steph, where did you get this lovely voice of yours?
Where did I get it? Oh, I don't know. Maybe it's the speaker.
You haven't trained your voice or anything?
No, I was a 911 dispatcher for a while, but other than that, that's it.
You had to be heard properly, so you spoke properly.
That is correct.
All right. Okay. I can get to the bottom of these things.
You do. Well done.
All right. Well, it is 11:26 p.m. here, so we are probably ready to wrap this up.
Yes.
But
it's only 8:24 here. So.
Your day has just begun.
I've been up since 6 o'clock, but I didn't know that I could have gone straight on and we would have been there. I've been sitting around. In fact, I'm editing this book again,
Right.
Yeah,
Will you walk today?
No. I haven't walked for nearly a week now because I started wheezing. Oh. And you shouldn't be walking when you've got any chest problems. So, walking flat out that. So when I've got rid of the wheezing, then I'll be back walking, which will probably be tomorrow.
Oh, great. Well, we hope that is tomorrow for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much again. And we will post your contact information so that everyone can buy your book and read your book and learn all about you.
It may sound funny that I'm not trying to sell books. I don't do anything to sell books. But the book is there if you need it, and you decide that. I'm prepared to answer any questions to help anybody at any time. And I mean, I must answer at least 30 emails a day, questions like you're asking. In fact, I've got a store of answers that I just have to go to the file and give it from the file, So it's the same questions all the time. And I'm not in it to make money. I'm not in it to sell books. I'm in it to try and get people to start getting better rather than continuing to get worse. And it sounds a bit funny. I mean, with all these trips overseas, I never charged anything for it. Hopefully, in the trip to you, that trip cost a lot of money. But some of the trips have come out square with what people have paid and so forth towards the cost of that trip. But for actually my time or anything else, I don't ever charge for it. And I go and do it wherever I can and for how long, it's my gift to society to try and get people for Parkinson's not to be a death sentence, but to be another hold up on the way. It isn't a death sentence. You don't die from Parkinson's, but you might just as well. If you can't walk and you can't talk, you might as well die. But you don't. You just have to be a bloody nuisance to everybody around you, because that's what you feel. Okay, it was lovely talking to you, and you can do this again anytime. Okay.
Thank you so much.
So much. We're going to sign off. Take care.
Take care, John.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night. And
Good night.